Can we just stop? Can we just stop? I swear, I can't. I can't. I don't know. Maybe it's all the people that's talking. And okay, obviously, I was like, well, maybe not obviously, but what I'm talking about here is this whole thing of game manager, game changer that was sort of started by Cam or whatever, and really we apply it to Brock Purdy. That's the one that starts it. Then now since then we have been using game manager in things like oh, Patrick Mahomes was just a game manager. That I was like, Josh Allen was able to get this far by being a game manager, and then when you need him, he turned to a game changer, and all this other stuff. And one, I was like, from the first time that Cam said something about it, to like a little bit later on, he sort of has said that the difference between a game changer and a game manager is that knowing that having that special ability. But he's also said too that hey, if I had a little bit more game manager in me, I might still also be out here like playing, or I might have been a little bit, you know, more successful. Whatever. He sort of has like gave more insight to what he meant by it. So anyway, he done. I guess he's not. He's like, I'm not recanting. I'm not doubling down. He's still talking about Brock Purdy, and he's still talking about like how he's like the 10th best player on his team, and then everybody else like this week, basically, like even myself, I was like, Brock Purdy has solidified himself at a top 10 quarterback or whatever it is. I was like, when were you going? Because we're going to do that in the offseason. And I still sort of stand by that. Just going off the top of my head, I'm like, yeah. And as some people sort of point out that I think it's reasonable, I'm like, he propelled himself over to a Tagovailoa, yeah. And I was like, I think he's right there with Dak. I think there is similar. But well, the thing that you could sort of say is that when I was like, what he showed is when things hit the fan, he can still do something. He can move. I was like, he over here. That's when he's like really honed in and he executes really strongly. But at the same time, then you have some people that's like, nah, he's great. He is elite. And I'm like, okay, y'all jumping way too far with this. This is ridiculous. Like he's a good player, a good player. And I'm sorry, but in two of the games, he looked like crap for nearly 2.5, 3 quarters, and got bailed out of situations. Now you could say also he had the tenacity to basically overcome either how he was playing or how the team was doing, and basically led his team to either winning drives, winning plays, and all other stuff. He won the game. That's all you can ask for. I was like, he won the game. And I'm like, yeah, we give him that prop. But you ain't gotta actually have that be something more than what it is. Like that doesn't mean that he all of a sudden is the top guy or anything like that. Like some of this sucks because it's Brock Purdy being at the whole issue of all this. And on one hand, he can't help that his team has a bunch of great players around him. He can't help that he has a good head coach. He can't help that the reason that this is even a damn question in the first place really because he plays quarterback. If he played any other position, we would give him his dust due without going overboard. But because he's the quarterback, it's really hard to be like, he's an important piece, but he's not the piece, but he is the piece. Because we've seen it with Garoppolo and how it looked with them and stuff. But then on the other hand, him being a late round pick, not what going to be even the quarterback in any of the rotation with Garoppolo or Lance at any of those points. So that I was like that does so that hinders. I was like, so that's sort of just like where we also see him as too in a type of way. But I'm like all this stuff can sort of be true without saying he's a top tier quarterback or elite quarterback. I was like, yeah, he gets the play done, and that's all you can ask for. No, the hell it ain't. I was like, all y'all players lying about that. You don't want to know why? Because y'all would rather have the dude that's over there. Because you would be like, oh man, if we screw up, we got that guy over there. You want to know why? Because you see what that guy does? Go to the playoffs all the damn time, and I was like in his Super Bowl about to get a third ring. Patrick Mahomes. Why? Because when you have that guy, everything else can sort of falter. But And I'm like, and even with the next tier of quarterbacks and stuff like that, and we talk about Purdy, I was hearing that they were saying like those guys are gone, Lamar and Josh Allen, but he's still here. And I'm like, what the hell did that guy do, if anything? That is not a point. That is not a point to me of like that matters on how he is good or not. Like, we could say he's good for that team. Yes. We could also say that if he was somewhere else, would he be as good? Maybe. Maybe not. But them saying like the other two elite quarterbacks, or not even elite, because Patrick Mahomes is elite. All the two really good quarterbacks and stuff like that, they're at home. Okay, and you act like you never seen. Sometimes I'm like, I'll put it like this: there are other quarterbacks that are on Brock Purdy's level that aren't on that aren't on quality teams like that. I'm like for instance, I was like we see the difference of like Brock Purdy and Kirk Cousins. We even seen like the difference between Brock Purdy and Jared Goff. It's the mobility, that type of part. But they're essentially sort of like the same. They're in the same bubble. So I'm like, so you mean to tell me that if Kirk Cousins had a way better defense, we wouldn't be saying some of the same things? I was like, there's some other players, like, I'm like, to be honest, and this ain't a knock, because I really like the quarterback as well, but I was like, I really think that him and Tyrod Taylor really have the same skill set. Tyrod Taylor's faster, but they're really the same type of quarterback. Really short and stout, good, not great arm. I was like, shifty in the pocket and stuff like that. Very good of just giving it to your playmakers and whatnot, and letting them do the work, but also be really good in short and intermediate throws. I was like, you need like a really good run game to also situate them as well. Like, you want the team on his back, but I was like, he does what you need to in order to also win games. He's really been hurt, but I'm like, he's gotten Buffalo to the playoffs. Don't let that confuse you. It wasn't Josh Allen. He was the one that got them to the playoffs, and they haven't been in the playoffs in decades. So I'm like, that's why, and I was like, Cleveland, it was effing Cleveland, and he got hurt there. Otherwise, he might have, because they were always here in all these games. But I was like, nobody wanted to give him no credit there, being like, it was the Browns with Hugh Jackson. I don't know nobody ever say that. But so that's why I'm saying that. I'm like, we don't get, and it's like, it's similar to the Josh Allen conversation, where it's like we give Josh Allen a lot of praise for losing that we don't give to other people. But it's like we give Brock Purdy a lot of, we give him a lot of like winning, that when I'm like, yeah, but he's a good player, but you ain't got to go overboard. That we wouldn't do with anybody else. And I'm like, to me, I'm like, it's really, I was like, and I think mostly it's really because it's the 49ers, because like if he was on some other team, we wouldn't look at him the same way. Like, to be honest, we would probably look at it as like Gardner Minshew if he was somewhere else. Like, remember, Gardner Minshew had that really great like year with Jacksonville and what they do. And Gardner Minshew with a 6th round pick, what they do? They drafted Trevor Lawrence. And and it's like, cool, that was the move that you had to make. But if Brock Purdy was somewhere else, that and having all this type of stuff, we would give him his props and be like, oh man, he's good. But nobody would be over here clamoring that it's like, oh, like, guess what? If he was with Atlanta, he would have had Atlanta looking really good this year. But I don't think it'll be something where it's like, oh, okay, but Atlanta got the number 1 pick. What you do? Like, guess what? If the 49ers had the number 1 pick, we say stick with Brock Purdy, mainly because he's not making no money like that. But don't get me wrong, there'd be a conversation. And that's how you got to look at things. Is there a conversation if you had the number 1 pick? So, and also, too, this is another thing that I want to, because I'm like, this sounds like it's a whole bunch of Brock Purdy slander. And it's not Brock Purdy. It's all the people. And this whole thing about game manager that is really funny to me is that they're the ones, media, the players, all of them, that had the whole thing of game manager being a negative. That's what it started out at. So I can see why that's a slight. But now everybody's trying to be like it's a good thing. But at the same time, the people that you label game managers, that's where you got to ask the question about. Because I'm like, we sort of was like they always throw out Trent Differ. And he wasn't really a game manager, but that's what they throw him out of like a lackluster, lower end quarterback with a really great team. But if we want to say, to me, the poster boy of game manager is Alex Smith. Alex Smith, who wasn't looking good, and Harbaugh got him, and it was like, oh man, this dude is really good. I was like, he's good. Then he went to Andy Reid, and it's like, oh, he's really good. But they still went out and got Patrick Mahomes. That's what a game manager actually is. And guess what? That's sort of what Brock Purdy is. So that's the question you got to ask yourself: is the people that y'all used to call game managers, would you want them to be your quarterback? It sounds all good and great now, but would you really? And that's how you really need to define it, or whatever. Just because, like, you're like, oh, it's great now. You know what a quarterback could do too much? Says who? That's stupid. That's dumb. You want somebody that could do a lot, and then you over here be like, okay, you don't have to. Then trying to be like, oh, well, I was like, you don't do a lot, and now I need you to do a lot. It's a lot different. It's like, hey, it's sort of like in basketball. Do you want the guy that go crazy on offense and then trying to develop them to play defense, or do you want the defensive guy and try to develop the offense in them? You kind of want the guy that has the offense already, because you're like, I could put a scheme, I could do something around that. And I was like, the guy that's a defense, I was like, I got to get him to develop a jump shot and him to take off. I was like, that's hard. And I'm like, hey, I'd rather get the guy that had all this crazy talent and try to hone it than to be like, man, I got to get all this greatness around him in order for him to give me the extra great that he might have. So the whole thing with game manager, the whole thing with Cam, and the whole, like, I'm like, it's a disingenuous conversation. I was like, they're not holding their end on what actually it is. They're trying to flip the word, and it's not that you can't change words over time or change the meaning of things, but guess what? Y'all trying to change the meaning when y'all don't believe in it. That's the problem. Because I'm like, y'all don't want no damn game managers as y'all damn quarterback. I'm just saying. Peyton Manning gets all those extra years because he was great, and then he started figuring things out and things got lucky. But it's not because he was a game manager. He was regular. You don't do a lot for regular. I'm just saying. But anyway, that's how I feel about it. Whatever. It's probably going to be a conversation, and then once they win the Super Bowl, then everybody else go get crazy. Because I'm like, from what you've seen from RD3 and Sherm and all this other stuff, I'm like, jeez, man, y'all are doing a lot here. But anyway, until the next conversation about this, out. Oh wait, hold on. And yes, he's probably like the 7th best player on this team, because even though they want to say like Christian McCaffrey, I was like, there was another guy in the MVP conversation with him, and he got to boost him because he's a quarterback. So you got to take that into account. So, yeah, he's probably like the 7th best, 6th or 7th best player on this team. Not the 10th, though.